Think that we will get started. Tim and Becky will join us when they're able to, and they had wonderful radio interview opportunity, and so they're going to finish that and join us. Tim and Becky will join us when we will.
Sorry about that. That was me.
Okay.
That's fixed.
Right. Well, um, I know that there are a couple of people that are also, going to join in within the next 10 to 15 minutes, but Blair, I think it would be great just to get started. What do you think?
I think so.
Okay. Well, one of the things I want to announce for all of us here, as well as for those on YouTube, is this is the 364th episode. So 52 weeks a year times 7 years makes 364 episodes. So this marks the 7 year anniversary for content within the Blair Dunkley experience.
You,
So 7 years, which really takes us back. I'm trying to think, this is 2025. So 7 years actually takes us back before COVID and before all of those things. When you think of how much life we have all lived in this world in the last 7 years, it's really quite significant.
it really is very significant.
It really
And
is. And we've had a faithful group of friends here and a community that has become very strong and very loyal, practicing and learning mind models, which is really, it's quite excellent. So, Reza, I'm glad to see you here.
Hi,
Shannon,
everybody.
welcome. And Tim and Becky, welcome. So, for announcements, just to let you all know, there are two podcasts available on Spotify and Apple. The Mind Model Mastery Secrets podcast, which is 2 episodes weekly, Monday and Thursday. And Thursday is a follow-up to what we discuss on Tuesday. Monday is a different topic, but those are available. And then there is a Mind Model Minutes podcast as well. And then Blair has a complimentary profiling session. If you want to send a message, he's on LinkedIn. Um, Becky, I'm going to turn this over to you. We just started acknowledging the 364th and how that mathematically adds up to 7 years and how much of life has been lived and changed in a 7 year window. It takes us before COVID. It takes us before a lot of our personal life events. It's a it's a big it's a big number. So I did a couple of the announcements and I'm just going to turn it over to you, Becky.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So we'll start again. Welcome to the 364th episode of the Blair Dunkley Experience, where we discuss mind models. Models are a collection of extensively tested thought frameworks, skills, and behaviors that enable people to transform their lives intentionally. Your host for this evening is Blair Dunkley, the creator of Mind Models, and we are Tim and Becky Graff, your co-hosts and certified mind model coaches, along with Patty McClurk. And the BDE is Blair's free gift to you and is an opportunity to learn, experience, and practice mind models in a safe, real-world environment. For Tim and I, mind models have impacted every part of our lives. We were just ruminating that it's been 7 years since Blair's been doing this, and looking back our life when we first started doing the BDE and we're first experiencing this is vastly different than it was now. And the transformation that we've personally experienced in that time frame is in business. We've become more effective and confident. In our marriage, we've been able to resolve an 8-year challenge within a couple hours. And in 2020, when we lost both of our daughters in a tragic accident, these tools, these mind models, gave us the strength to navigate the grief and PTSD and the capacity to recover more quickly than we ever thought possible. Mind models have increased our effectiveness, our resilience, and our ability to keep moving forward without traditional counseling. And we're excited to have you learn with us tonight on the BDE. If you're on YouTube, please comment, like, and subscribe. Again, we're here every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Mountain, 9 p.m. Eastern. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Blair.
Well, it's been a bit, by the way, first troll I've ever had in 7 years. So whatever. Interesting. Leftovers. So sorry, I was just looking for my stuff here, which I think I have right here. Um, I do. And um, sorry, can somebody tap dance for a little bit here? Because
We can tap.
I am literally looking for my uh the stuff that I was going to be sharing here.
Okay.
Um,
Well, while you're looking for that, does
Thank you.
anybody have anything that popped up for them since our episode last week as far as why holes? What did you notice or what came up for you? I will call on someone. Leslie, would you mind sharing?
Thank you. I was just reading over my notes from
Hmm.
last week and thinking, and yeah, I've tried very hard to eliminate the word why from my conversation completely. Um, it's and it's worked. It has helped in communicating, getting through, and um, I certainly notice it when other people fall into using a why situation or trying to bring out that emotion and the emotion that is tied behind a why question, and we're working to get them to evolve out of that, of to get away from the emotion and what is it that is really what's really at stake, what's really the issue that is is behind it all. And
And how have you found that? How's that worked for you?
um, I'm thinking I'm thinking of one particular conversation, and it it worked. It certainly stopped the other person thinking and trying to be more logical instead of generalizing and just going off.
Hmm.
You know, it did make them stop and think a little bit more about what they were saying. It
Mhm.
was noticeable. It was noticeable. So uh, it worked. It worked.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing, Leslie. Brent, anything from you?
I can't say not much from last week on the why. I haven't really. The only thing I know is I paid attention to myself. I recently have found I've caught myself a couple times using why. I just from a habit of hearing it. But there are times I find myself I stop. I go. I for a while there I knew like when I would say what's or why's I knew where I was at. And sometimes I find myself like wait a second, something was a bit off. But like in that sentence I'm like I'm pretty sure I just used why in there instead of what's at like the questions the whys. I'm like I couldn't corroborate because I was the one speaking. I wasn't saying to anybody, but I was like, I'm pretty sure I used why there. So I was like, I gotta just focus on keep what's in there, making sure. So I'm it was how easy it is to get just to show how easy it is to get back to that habit, or if it's more around you a lot, it just pulls in like that stuff. I don't know, like that it comes to you just being around it like osmosis. It's just there, like that habit of not the behavior, but just hearing it can
Mhm.
cause bring that stuff in so you can being so to be more conscious and aware of that the
yeah,
the surroundings that
yeah,
you're in.
exactly. I wanted just to share some of the content here that I've got. Um, Sorry, I didn't have it up and going for tonight, but ready. But here it is. Hallmarks of a Y hole. And this is just us reviewing what we talked about yesterday, or sorry, last week. So hallmarks of a Y hole, it's 100% past based. You emotions load first. Well, predominantly, they're the bigger one between emotion versus cognition, logical stuff. It creates stuck states. It fuels reasons and excuses, rationalizations and justifications, and it involves reliving, not remembering. And we're going to dive into that a little bit tonight here too. But the signs of a why hole, when you're in this, the emotional intensity increases. Language becomes accusatory. And this happens to ourselves as well. We wind up, accusing ourselves, beating up on ourselves, whatever. Our mind freezes. It's sort of like a startle response. Um, one only in negative emotions appear. So you beat the crap out of yourself, and there's no positive in that. And a refusal, even when you're wanting to be understood, most of the time when people try to understand you and you're in a serious why hole, then people reject you understanding, even though they want to be understood, they say, you can't understand. And so, you haven't been here. So one of the things that we did briefly is we went through the escape plan last week, and this week we're going to do some inoculation and preventative stuff. But last week we had the awareness, the three-step escape plan, and get aware, get perspective, and get effective. So an ANPU, awareness, notice, process, understand, gives us cues before you're being triggered. And that's integral to this whole thing. But if you are triggered, getting the awareness and noticing the fact that you're already triggered is critical. It's difficult. I mean, I've spent a lot of time last month talking about moving from 0 to 1 because that's the toughest distance to traverse, from 0 to 1. And recognizing your own stuck state, that's huge. But then you have to be able to get perspective. And one of the best mind models that we have is a mind model SOS, or self, other, and situation. That's highly effective for us because when we take a look at getting perspective of ourselves, we know that it's not just us, but we impact others and we're impacted and impacting the situation. And the last one is get effective, but that means using the 3 E's. Effective versus ineffective, external versus internal, and evaluation versus judgment all become observable, externally verifiable actions when everything works like that. So guys, that's a quick summary and leftovers for last week. Any other comments that pop up for you guys?
Yeah, I wanted to jump in there, add on to mine a little bit, and that's where like the number one, getting aware and being there is so somehow I was able to be aware of something was there, but maybe not seeing the words. I noticed and being aware that I'm now starting to use why, so to keep myself from getting into that state, that slippery slope. If I start to use the word why, am I starting to behave that way? So doing that too, for me, that was the piece there. So quickly become aware and try to, well, I don't know if got the perspective, but understand that, that's quickly a slippery slope where I can get into that why hole if I let myself go and just, not make any adjustments to, evaluate, and I can quickly get to that point back behaviorally to be easily get into those what we would call the why hole.
Exactly. So that's huge.
I thought it was I thought it was interesting, Blair, as you were going through those slides. Sorry, I'm just scrolling back down to that second slide that you showed, the signs of a Y hole. I found it interesting as this meeting started. We had our troll,
Yeah.
and a lot of those signs suddenly went bam. You have the emotional intensity increasing all of a sudden. You have the language.
Probably inside of our heads.
Yeah, the language could have been, and some of us were like, what the
What's going on here?
Your mind freezes that startle response.
Yep.
And only negative emotions suddenly just like, I don't know about anybody else, but I suddenly felt my face go red. And the emotions and things that came up with that, I just thought it was interesting as you were going through that slide, Blair. I was like, wow, that literally just happened just a couple minutes ago when we had the troll come on and be inappropriate.
Yep.
How that can send in that moment somebody just spiraling. And and unless we have a process, and that's just how easy it is to find ourselves in a Y hole, that startle, and suddenly you're in it, and you're spiraling out of control, so to speak. And so the question is, how do we come back from that? How do we correct and bring this back? Which is what we're going to be talking about tonight with, how to counter the dark magic of the Y hole and the why that we go into. I'll get into kind of, I had a question that I wanted to ask first before we get into kind of talking through the inoculation process, or what is lovingly been called the inoculation process. I had a question. What is the process for Y hole recovery? What is the process for Y hole recovery?
Exactly. Who are you asking?
Can I ask you, Brent? I know you're writing. I'm curious your thoughts on what you're writing.
Well, I was writing something, but then I had to remember the question, so I was trying to write down what the question was
So
as
I'll
well.
ask you- yeah. So what is the process for Y hole recovery? What do you think?
Well, I mean,
Zach, I know that Zach just put a
Yeah.
comment. That might help kickstart. He says, ask effective questions.
yeah, become curious to become aware, but being curious enough to the situation to get yourself asking those questions, the curiosity, the three E's. You get to use and process using the mind models, but getting yourself asking the questions, being curious, specific, not general, but being very specific on what with those questions, so the answer, so you can make the change and be aware of what is going on. Curiosity killed the why. Yeah.
I love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes,
okay.
you're getting to what's that?
No, just
Yeah.
2 seconds. That's a very profound statement. There's that curiosity killed the why.
It must be. I was thinking about that when as I was paused, and that was running through my brain there.
Exactly. How does curiosity kill the why? Brent, do you know?
Oh, well, curiosity as a emotion gets you from the emotional state of the brain to the logical part of the brain.
Exactly. In fact, it's the only emotion that goes from the emotional center, which is in the back of your head, the amygdala, the lizard brain area of your head, into prefrontal cortex, and actually uses both parts of your brain to be able to do that. It uses prefrontal and the amygdala, the emotional side of that. It's the only emotion I've found that consistently does that. Other emotions can sometimes do it, but curiosity is the only one that very consistently does it. So, so that makes Zach, did you just type that in there as sort of like funny, or?
Yeah, it's like, instead of curiosity killed the cat,
Yeah,
curiosity
yeah.
killed the why.
But it actually does. That's the whole thing. When we're stuck in a why, we can take a look at what is and move forward. So, anyway.
And I would follow that up with Shannon, your question, would safety versus comfort come near the beginning? What are your thoughts on that, Shannon?
I was just thinking that intellectually, I know curiosity is the bridge, but it's difficult for me if we're talking about that moment and we're looking how to find our way back to ourselves after that moment. it's it feels like you need to feel safe before you can feel curious. Is that true? Or
No,
not? I'm
no,
just
it's
curious.
not.
Like I was in my head wondering, like, does one come before the other, or do they kind of happen together?
Neither. They can happen separately or together. It
Okay.
doesn't matter. It is really what is your priority in the moment. And
Okay.
so if you are prioritizing curiosity, you can break out. But if your brain is not going towards curiosity,
Mhm.
is it just like I know a number of people, and the language may not be very PC, but they tend to be, they indulge themselves in their why.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's the issue. So what happens with that indulged um why? Like they stand their past, they're down, they're depressed, they're frustrated, they're mad, they're doing whatever.
Well, they're
And
pouring gasoline on the fire.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't necessarily need to be safety versus comfort, then like that could be just as needed. Does anything else come before curiosity, or is that pretty near the beginning? Would you say describing feelings would need to come before that, or
See, the
anything
problem
else
here
like that?
is that if we don't, and this is part of the inoculation, I like to get our heads wrapped around,
Mhm.
is know that there's only two fundamental emotions that we have. We have curiosity as being one, and anybody know what the other one is? Yeah,
Under-
shut up. Okay, I just about said it. So go ahead, Shannon. You're laughing.
Understanding.
Right. So we all have a sense, a need to feel, well, to understand and to be understood.
Mhm.
That's really critical. So those are the only two drivers that I know are fundamental that we're absolutely born with. So those can be tested for right off the hop when a baby is born on the Apgar scale. Curiosity is one of the things that they wind up testing for right when the baby's born. So, and then do they figure out and understand what to do? Like the basic hunger and feeding and that sort of thing. All of that is around curiosity and understanding. When the baby's brain is not fully developed, those two things may or may not happen. So that's really fundamental in terms of that. So, yeah, it's just right there. Sorry, Tim, take it away if you want, or take it back.
Okay, so I love where the conversation has gone so far, and one of the things that I want to highlight, and Blair mentioned it earlier, and it's actually been brought up by a couple of us already, is the first thing that if we're looking for an inoculation process, whether we can anticipate a why, or whether we suddenly just find ourselves, as we might have experienced at the beginning of this, suddenly in a state where why is just there. Where do we start? How do you, when those emotions just flood and we got to kick back into the informational part of the brain, that curiosity that we've been talking about is kind of that first step, that 0 to 1, so to speak, that
Mhm.
we can shift gear. And I just want to highlight that because that is important. That is the piece that moves us forward. And as we talk about, when we were putting this all together and talking about the why, and we were talking about what would be an effective inoculation process, my thoughts immediately went to, well, Blair, and here's a name and label for you. Blair is famous. I'm saying Blair's famous for the question concepts. Now, if you haven't been, those of us, I know some of us on here have had some exposure to the question concepts. If you're out there on YouTube and you haven't heard of the question concepts, This is something that Blair discovered a long time ago. He's famous for it. He's well known for this process. In fact, a lot of science and stuff that's been done since has come to the awareness that this is new and this is brilliant stuff. And so if you have an opportunity to come through My Model Coach, you'll get the question concepts. But my thoughts naturally went to why is part of the question concepts. It is one of the questions. If you're looking for an inoculation to the why, it seemed reasonable and natural for me to go to the other questions. So, what are some of the other questions that we ask ourselves? Shane? The timing was on. Got you there.
Yeah, I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming. And yeah, no, I said the word what, but mine would be a disguise. I said disguised what, but in the comments, but mine was a disguised why when that guy was on there, like what? But it was a why question in my brain,
Yep.
like.
Exactly.
But anyway, so you want to know what the question concepts are?
What?
No,
That was
just
your question?
not the question concepts per se, but we have the why. The why is one of the questions that we can ask. What are some of the other questions that we can ask?
That might be more effective.
What, where, who, how?
Okay.
What one am I missing?
When and where? Did you say when and where?
He didn't say when.
When?
He said where.
Ah, I said where, but when? Thank you.
And the why.
And the why.
And then the why.
Well, but Tim said why to start with.
He did.
So I love it. And actually, you brought up something there, Shane, that I thought was brilliant, and I couldn't have set that up any better myself. One of the things that I noticed when I went to, so my thoughts were, okay, if we want to get out of the why, it stands to reason to go to the other questions to move out of the why. And so my natural process was to go to what? If I'm getting out of a why, I'm going to go to what? But I found that when I started asking myself what, when I'm in that why state, or I'm potentially moving into a why state, and I asked myself what, I found that really all I was doing, as you mentioned, Shane, was asking myself another disguised why. It just
changing the word.
Just changing the word, but really I was just asking myself another why. And so a lot of times that just sent me even further down into a why hole instead of actually moving me out of the why hole. So I'm going to give credit to Jackie here. She's not on tonight, but Jackie is usually with us. And Jackie brought up a question that she asked herself quite a while ago. She brought it up. I don't remember exactly which episode, but it was a couple months ago. She asks, "Where am I?" And it was brilliant. For me, that worked. And so one of the first questions, so here's, and out of this talking through it with Patty and Blair and Becky and some of us as we created this, we put together the inoculation process. So I'm going to actually go into that. And it may not be the same for all of us, but we found this may be an effective process for working with the why, whether you are going to prevent it or whether you're actually in it and you want to alleviate it. So that first question of where am I? This is that discovery question that brings in that curiosity, because you can ask yourself, okay, where am I? And this brings you into the present. You can ask, and you're either, okay, I'm in the past. Well, what do I know about that? I need to come present, or I'm in the future, but by discovering where you are emotionally, you can bring yourself with that question. That curiosity kicks in. This is that 0 to 1 question that brings you into the present. Second question. So they have the where first, and then the who. Who's in the why? Am I in the why? Is this myself? Is the other in the why?
And how do you know?
And how do you know?
What's presenting? Brent, you're shaking your head. What's coming up for you?
No,
Next?
it's just you're great at that follow-up question. Like that's Becky right there. I know it's like, it's Becky's question. I know every time we got a question, it's like, how do you know? I like that.
Well, it
Yeah,
is
you must see a how do you know to verify that what is you're saying is accurate and effective. So
because if you don't, what do you run the risk of?
I mean, were you staying in you risk staying in where you're at, making assumptions. Um, so yeah, it makes you may be off track of where you're going, down, off a different direction. So you want to go somewhere, but you ended up instead of going straight, you took a hard left somewhere, and you don't know that you did.
Exactly. I like Zach's comment here, repeating another while loop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Storytelling at its finest, right? Spinning wheels, potentially.
And the other thing to keep in mind here with the who is if it does happen to be another, asking yourself, am I in the why as well? Am I in the why too? Because it's easy if somebody else, a lot of times if somebody else is in a why, you can find yourself sucked into their why.
Yeah.
So just something to be aware of with the who is if it is another, are you getting sucked into it as well? So there could be multiple who's.
This goes back to what Blair was talking a couple episodes about. Where is the finger being pointed? Because again, if you're in a situation with another human being, there's at least more than one thing at play. You're not in a vacuum, you're not by yourself, you're not in there are things that are going on. So being honest with yourself also about, am I in a why? Maybe you're not fully in, maybe you haven't jumped all in, like you haven't dove into the deep end, but do you have a toe in the water? What might you need to do in this situation?
So you've got the where am I, who is in the why. The next step, at this point, you have brought yourself present. You've discovered who. Now you bring in the what. Okay. What can I control and what might I do at this present moment? Or if it's needed, what happened? Because sometimes we find ourselves in a why and we don't even know what the crap just happened. Like what happened at the beginning of the call? What just happened? Like what? And you're spiraling looking for what the heck?
Well, those weren't the words that came to my mind, but
I'm being peaceful.
This is a family call, but going back to that, where am I? Who's involved? With gaining the knowledge that Christy and I have through the BDE and through taking some of Blair's courses, the fact that some people just relish or just love to stay in their Y loop. Like they just are comfortable with, and then there's some situations going on around our area here that I mean they're just always so negative, and you try to snap them out of that. You ask questions, you try to I'm not saying show them a better way, but kind of get them curious of what might they do different, Becky. What might they do different? 24 hours, 48 hours, they're just right back in the same Y loop, and they just want to wallow in their own muck.
So in that situation, Shane, what's the opportunity or how do you handle that? What's your responsibility, I would say?
My responsibility, some of the ones that are close to me, I will continue to work with them, continue to get curious, kind of like Blair gave in a slide earlier, get perspective, and then try to get effective with the 3 E's and continue on. Some of them, I mean, they're not their other situation, but I mean, the others and their situation doesn't really involve me. So I mean, if they ask, I will gladly try to help their situation, but in the same aspect, it doesn't affect me and my life or my family's life. So it's kind of like, what do you want me to do about it? I've
And I think that's a very important thing, Shane, is when I asked the question, it was very intentional responsibility because, again, at the end of the day, we can only control ourselves to the level in which we choose to engage. It's not our job to fix people. It's not our job to tell them what to do and make them ship up or shape out or any of that. We can model and invite. But at the end of the day, our responsibility, first and foremost, is to our own behavior and how we choose to show up.
Yep.
So I appreciate you sharing that, Shane, because a lot of times we sometimes adopt, we slide into the Y hole. We feel like we're on the end of the receiving end of the sliding, the tug of war, right? It's very easy, especially when it's people that we care about, to be sucked into their Y hole or have it rub off. And so when we're talking about this inoculation series, where am I? Who is in the Y, and am I in the Y tool? Two, one of the things that we didn't get into here is the naming and labeling and describing your own feelings and creating space if necessary for yourself to be able to engage in the way that you would like to.
Yeah.
Where it might be more effective. And with the counting tool, and Blair, do you want to talk a little bit more about the counting tool?
Well, I've had to use that on a couple of people in the last couple of weeks, actually. The counting tool is really easy. It's just counting out loud. But the first question is, am I okay right now? Or am I safe right now? And usually people are stressing themselves out and they're doing this whole thing. And what I'm working at doing is getting them back to the present. And that's the first question. Where they are in their past does not feel safe. It does not feel okay in whatever circumstances. Everything seems too big and totally out of control. Yet they are okay for right now. They're projecting into the future. So bringing people back to the present and bringing yourself back to the present is critical. Now, how do we do that? As Becky was referencing, I created a counting tool. Well, I can't take full credit for it because my mom did it to me when I was having night terrors back as a little kid. She would ask me, she'd come in, she'd comfort me, and she'd ask me, so Blair, are you okay now? Are you safe right now? And I'd say, yep. And then she told me, count to 3 and ask yourself if you're safe, but count out loud. 1, 2, 3. Okay, Blair, are you still safe? Are you still okay? And the answer was yes. Then count out loud to 5. So we'd do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And she'd ask again, are you still safe? Are you okay? And the answer was yes. Well, that is such an excellent way to have people bring themselves to the present. And one of the things that I added to that is this whole concept of just look around, like check your environment. Do you see a threat? And I have yet to have anybody in their actual environment where this is happening, where there was something or someone threatening them in any way, shape, or form for real. So they were okay. So the critical thing was to get them back into the present and know, absolutely know that they're safe. And that process is critical when people have anxiety attacks, when they have their fears, when they have even sometimes minor phobic responses. It's a way of breaking that grip, that thought pattern that's in your head, locking you in that. It's a way of breaking that and getting yourself back to the present and knowing that you're okay. By the way, I do that all the way up to 20. Now, that's only because as a 4-year-old or so, I didn't count past 20 at the time. So that's as far as I could go. But it has always worked very well with everybody I've used that on. So.
Appreciate you sharing that, Blair. It's a very simple and powerful thing to get present and externalize so that you can get perspective, which goes to the next thing we talked about.
Yeah, so you may notice as we go through, we're not done with the inoculation process yet. We've got the first, where am I? Who's in it? And what has happened or what can I control?
What might I do?
Okay, what might I do? And you may notice Blair showed at the beginning of this, we talked through the 3 steps to get aware.
Yep.
Yep. We talked through the 3 steps, and Ananpu was first. And then you have an SOS, self-other situation. And then you had the 3 E's in that process. You may see throughout this inoculation process these 3 mind models at play. Like to think of the where am I, who's involved, and the what as that discovery phase, that 0 to 1, as the awareness, notice, those first 2 phases moving through. Now we're going to
bring that slide up again. I've got it right here.
Sure, if you want to, Blair, as I talk through this.
Yeah, so this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So the escape, this is part of that escape plan. So what we've gone through thus far would be the Ananpu. Well, Ananpu's throughout this. But those, what I've shared thus far is basically that awareness, notice part of Ananpu. Now, as we move into more of a process part of the inoculation, which the next question would be a check-in. It's the where again. Where am I now? And updating with yourself. What is happening right now? Am I living through it, or am I reliving this? So it goes into the when, which would be the next step of that. Those 2 kind of piggyback, if you will. At least the way I think through them and the way I work through them has been kind of a piggyback. Where am I now? Checking in with myself and updating am I present now? And if I'm not, that counting process that Blair talked about, actually doing a physical behavior, helps really bring that in so that I can move into that process. When might I do it? The when question comes in. Am I living it now? Is it past? Those kinds of things. And then you can move into the how, which the how is actually putting that process in action and moving forward out of the why.
But I'd like to cycle back just a minute. We've talked about this before, remember versus relive. But Blair, would you mind walking us through kind of grassroots where this came from and how we can think about it maybe slightly different in this specific situation?
Yeah, thanks. You know, when I was originally putting this stuff together, I was finding that a lot of my students at the college, Life Skills College, were reliving, and their reliving was so intense. They would break down into tears, recalling different situations. They'd start physically shaking in going through the recollections of all of this. It wasn't recalling, it was literally reliving it, where you could literally see and feel the power of that emotion that was consuming them, and that was huge. So that relive part was there, but then I would start talking to them about when did this happen to you? And frequently these things were like 2 years old, 5 years old, even 10 or 20 years old. These events were huge, and they're reliving these traumas. And trauma has, like, I don't want to minimize trauma. Trauma's valid, yet reliving can amplify the trauma that you have. And so it was when I started recognizing, and I've been through a lot of traumatic situations. I mean, my father went into a coma. My 7-year-old nephew passed away in cancer, right in front of me. Like, there's lots of traumas I can go on and on and on about, but I've lived through those. In the moment, there's sadness. In the moment, there's the emotion. Or shortly thereafter, there's that grieving process and releasing that and letting it go. Now, some people pack it away to be relived. Others let it shift into remembering it and going, that's how it was. And it goes into the past tense. So the whole relive versus remember mind model is all based on recognizing that we have lived through this. How many times do we need to live through it to learn it? And so for me, um, being able to shift from living it into remembering it was extremely helpful. Now, in the early days, the mind model was relive, live, remember. So, and at the very beginning, it was live and then remember it. But people were in the relive and it didn't hold that well because they would slide back into reliving. So when we acknowledge the reliving part and ask yourself, do I need to live in that memory, in that scenario? Do I need to live there? And if so, for what purpose? And when I was asking people those questions, the vast majority of them were saying, I don't want to live here. Well, then, how might we shift it? Is it okay to say, I've lived through this? Can I now, because you've lived through a whole lot of things and you've been through other situations in your life where it's been pretty bad at times, and you remember those, correct? But do they trigger you like this one? And they go, no. Well, might it be possible for you to sort of go and place this in your mind as, oh, all I need to do is remember it, not relive it? And we immediately, for me personally, I immediately get a distance on that emotional content. So I can relive my father being told about my father going into a coma, or I can remember it. When I relive it, I quite honestly break down into tears. However, if I just choose to remember it, I've got this distance, it's over here, it's not in me. The emotions don't overwhelm me because I've got some distance on it. And that's huge. But the biggest piece is I've lived through it once. I don't need to live through it multiple times because that multiple time stuff is all about reliving.
And it's
Become a memory.
And it speaks a lot to your size of now as well. So how quickly are you able to update what's going on for you in the moment so that you can get utility on that? Would you share that, there's been times in my life where I have definitely been living something, but even within the living of the event, right, the causal, fallout of the event, there was micro improvements, there was micro shifts, there was micro distance on the original event, even though the feelings and stuff were still very much real in the now. That's the ebb and flow of being able to name and label and describe your feelings effectively and being aware of where you are, the impact that that has on your ability to move through it so that you can cleanly identify this was then. Right, this is where I want to go. Zach, you put, can people live something they haven't actually experienced, like they worry so much about a potential bad scenario? Can you share a little bit more about that, please?
And it's interesting that you brought that up, Zach, because Becky and I literally just got done on the radio talking about this exact thing.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, what Blair's talking about with reliving a bad experience or what have you, and how that's not effective, or it brings up those same emotions from the first time you lived through it. I mean, I've coached some people who have not even lived the experience, like actually experienced the thing that they are, I guess, reliving. It's like they put like the worst case scenario so deep in their mind, and their imagination is so vivid that it's almost like they did go through that scenario. Like, what do you do for someone like that?
Well, first things first, for you, you should know this. Then when we have vivid imagination, our brain cannot really distinguish one from the other, living it or imagining it. It's the same wiring.
Which what
Okay.
makes this is what makes going to the movies so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's the first things first. Secondly, it's about which, like Becky was talking about the size of now. Well, it's not only the size of now, it's are they in the past, present, or future? And what you're hearing is somebody practicing a past future loop, taking something that may or may not have occurred in the past, but it was created some time ago, and they're fearing that event, projecting it into the future, and constantly doing that, as opposed to taking it one day, one moment at a time. That's how come the counting thing works, where you bring it back to counting and say, are you okay right now? Like right now. And they have to think about, am I okay right now? And that's the power of getting them out of their future or past future loop into the present. And that's critical. Patty.
Yeah, I was just going to say this is how phobias form. And this is part of Blair has a service, the Phobia Freedom Formula, to break that pattern, break that neurological pattern. Yes, the book.
Yep.
Thank you. I have mine too. But that's how phobias form. Fear of going over a bridge or fear of flying. Have you ever actually fallen off of a bridge? Most people, I would say no. Same with an airplane accident, but they are experiencing what might happen in such a vivid way that their body considers it real. And again, as Blair said, your body, your brain does not distinguish between vivid imagination and what actually happened. Isn't there a mind model, Blair, real versus imaginary?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, there's a mind model actually, real versus imaginary. And that's part of how that's impacted. But if anyone is actually struggling with something like that, drop Blair an email, blair@rewiringthemind.com, and he can work his phobia freedom formula for you so that you don't have to live in that any longer.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The funny thing here is, in studying all of this stuff, there are lots of therapies out there that do things over time. And they work slowly sometimes. They don't have a high percentage of success, but they do tend to work. And people do get desensitized over time. So it reduces the issue, but so will time. Time will also give desensitization to most scenarios. Sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes we need to get a fix because we've held on to our phobia, our fear, our anxiety for years, if not decades. Well, what if and no what if here, but I'm just saying, what if there is a way, literally, that neuroscience has defined a way to be able to take how you feel in a certain way, hold it as an open file in your mind, and then walk you through a series of events, of physical things that you do in the present moment that more or less disengages the phobic reaction, the feelings to the memory. And so the body can get rewired. And that's really what the whole phobic response is. And mind models help in the rewiring and also in the long-term recovery because it gives you strategies that if you're a little triggered, well, now you can get out of it. Now you can go, oh, that's what's happening. I need to come back to the present. So I need to get out of my past future loop and get back to the present. So yeah.
And what I love what you're talking about right now, Blair, is taking a proactive versus a reactive approach.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we experience life, that first blush typically is a reaction, like or that startle response. But then what do we do? How do we then engage? And what Blair's talking about is a very proactive way in bringing the body, brain, like everything online in the present to work through something very specific. Proactive to limit the reaction that might have historically occurred and to create a new pathway forward. So when we're talking about Y holes, finding ourselves in Y holes, getting ourselves out of Y holes, dealing with people who are in Y holes, okay, this assessment of where are we, and then how we want to engage proactively in the now has a lot of utility to it. We've talked about, one process flow, where, who, what, where, when, okay, which within there's a few different mind models.
And the interesting thing, just to mention this real quick, is that's one flow. It may work. Everybody is going to have their different process of going through it, what works for them. Maybe all those questions don't work for you. You can use it as you need to. And you may notice that self-situation others throughout that as well. Each situation is going to present different questions, different orders, those kinds of things. So it's very situational. But that's kind of just a process flow to give you something to work with and think through.
And again, as you think through how you might use each one of these, again, this isn't about right or wrong, like I have to do it this way or I don't do it this way. This is about effectiveness. Mind models are built on process and effective flow. So I'm curious, what's coming up for you? I've seen a lot of head down writing. Shane, I'm going to share what's coming up for you. I think we're just about ready to transition to wrap up in just a few minutes, so we have a little bit more conversation here.
Oh yeah, I mean it's just the fact that there's the Blair system, the BDE, the mind models have drastically changed Christy and I's lives, our family lives, just rewiring the mind. I mean, literally a more effective way of thinking, and it's sure been a blessing that Zach turned me on to Blair. I don't know, 2 years ago now, maybe. I don't know what it is, but so
About that.
love the effectiveness of it.
Good. So Zach, what are you pulling out of today's? Maybe we should just pivot into wrap up and talk about what people are getting. Does that make sense, people?
Yeah, we can go there.
Okay, great.
Hey, we've been adding a little twist to the wrap up. Zach, just to fill you in, we've been adding a question to the wrap up in addition to, what takeaways did you get from tonight? I've been adding a question so that we're ending the evening. Anybody is triggered into a why hole by the program, we're ending the evening celebrating our wins, which is also a mind model. So the question for tonight is to name one win that you had this week, in addition to a takeaway that you had, and then a number from 1 to 10 on the value of that takeaway in your life. So Blair started with you, Zach. So are you, excuse me, would you like to participate in wrap up tonight?
Yeah. So my win, I don't know if this is considered cheating, but my win is being able to make it here tonight. Very, very grateful for that. It was a very good one, very effective one to attend. So, um, not cheating. Okay, good. Takeaway, it's kind of hard to pick one. I like some of the names and labels. I like that we're calling this like the inoculation. I think it just visually makes sense for me. I like all the steps for it, and I've been taking notes quite a bit. The only question I guess that I would have, so Blair, you mentioned that there's two emotions, the curiosity and the understanding.
Yes,
When somebody gets into a why loop, obviously that's not curiosity.
correct.
So
Nor is it understanding.
okay.
Okay, so they're not understanding it, they're recounting it, they're reliving it, they're replaying it, not understanding it.
Okay. Got it. Makes sense. That was my only question. But no, I would say biggest takeaway, I really like um the initial questions. Like, so if I find myself in a why loop, the where am I, who is in the why loop or hole. The why hole thing is a whole different thing. I don't know. To me, I'm so used to the why loop. So sorry if I'm saying the wrong thing there. But and then how do I know, which was a sneaky one that Becky threw in there. And then what might I do? Those initial questions I think are highly effective. So I wrote those down and highlighted them. So I'm excited to put it in practice. 9 out of 10 tonight.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Zach. I appreciate that so much. Leslie, a win you had this week. Would you like to participate and wrap up?
Yes. A win is I'm just thinking of some of the conversations over the week that have just been able to um, bring into focus and moving away from the emotion. Not only in just realizing this, not only in conversations with others, but also in my own behaviors of figuring out life in the fast lane. And so it has been a good week. A 9 for me tonight, a solid 9. This is the things that we have talked about and the adding or connecting the mind models to the actions is really helpful. Something that has developed over continually participating in these Tuesday evening sessions. Great learning.
So I have a question, Leslie. Has it improved your life to have more ability to manage and regulate your emotions?
Absolutely. I still lose my emotions and get all filibustered or whatever we could word you can imagine to apply to it. But definitely the remembering versus reliving is a huge one for me.
Mm-hmm.
As Blair will attest when we first met, reliving, well, you couldn't fit it in this room. It was that big. But could certainly now just work on remembering.
Excellent. Really good to hear it. The one thing that Blair is always very clear about is that the mind models don't keep life from happening. They help us navigate it when it does.
Exactly.
So we all experience that why emotion. We get to choose how long do we stay there. You know, do we need to stay there for years, which some people do? Or can we recognize what it is and use the tools, get ourselves back to the present, and become effective again in minutes sometimes, as opposed to years of other kinds of of living that way for years. So again, my models, the inoculation prevents us, if we can see it coming, we can smell the smoke, so to speak, but it also alleviates a lot of the pain and distress if we actually do end up in that place. We don't have to stay there for very long. So I'm really glad to hear how my models have positively impacted you.
Thank you.
Okay. Brent, would you like to participate in wrap up? Name a win you had this week?
Yes. Let's see. That one I was a thinker. So the win, I would say I'll pick one. The one as I brought up earlier was the awareness I had of my use. I was like the word wipe. So the awareness of that and my surroundings as well. So my behavior, being
Mhm.
aware of my behavior, and then that bring quickly to, oh, my surroundings. Like what am I? Where am I in? And what is coming in to me that I wasn't paying attention to, that led me to bringing back these behaviors that are ineffective for me. So quickly got to that evaluation and made an adjustment with the mind model. So that was a win. Also, I got effective use of let's say the alignment process
Mhm.
uh, as well. So seeing how that affects or that interaction like bring down a situation of intensity, you would say, instead of just bringing up a topic and going right at it if the other person is not available or ready for it. But the alignment process saying, I have something I'd like to bring up. Is this, is it appropriate right now for you to bring this up? And yeah, that was definitely made a difference. So yeah,
I'm excited to hear it. So
like
what
that.
did you take out of tonight?
Um, I like the process, getting the steps as well as their effective use of the mind models and going through and using them in these situations. And we've gone through these before, but putting them in this process for and the inoculation. And I like the new names and labels for this. It brings some flair to brings some new flair to the processes that we have. So
Mhm.
I like
Yeah,
that. Yeah, but I also enjoyed getting into the remember versus the relive. There was a couple of new things that I picked up. So I have them written down, but I did pick up a couple new things. So I just wanted to give it a 9.5 for me tonight.
great. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Shane, would you like to participate in wrap up tonight?
Oh, for sure. For sure. A win for this week. I feel my shoulder's getting stronger. There's still quite a bit of pain, but I am doing maybe not normal work, but lots more work. Sometimes I know I do push it, but I feel I'm not chewing on ibuprofen like they're Pez candy like I used to. So
I'm glad
that's
to
a
hear
pretty
it.
good
How's your
win.
son-in-law?
Both surgeries went pretty good. He has a follow-up Thursday, and Skittles in my world. I love it. Then they'll have to do another surgery in about 4 weeks to remove the 5 pins they got in there and
Mhm.
put some plates and screws in there and then start on some therapy. But no, he's doing good, and that's another win that we got his. He's gonna be all right. Scary, but it'll be all right. Takeaway from today, I like Blair's process: the get aware, get perspective, and get effective.
Mhm.
And then Becky mentioned in there, we can only control ourselves. And then in the chat, I wrote down here that Zach put in there control versus influence, or influence versus control. And in part of that I was talking about. Solid, solid 9.5, even though there was a little interruption at the beginning.
Well, the beginning ended up being a object lesson of sorts. So I don't know if I'd call it fortunate, but it ended up being an object lesson of sorts.
There you go.
So Reza put in the chat that it was an 8 out of 10 tonight for him. It's different to listen in at, it looks like 1 I don't know what 1x means, one
Oh, at
time.
real speed.
Oh, at real speed?
Because
Okay.
when he jumps online and listens to these things at 1.5 speed or
Oh,
two times speed.
okay. Anyway, he says he's learned remember versus relive, and he's got to go to a meeting. So we enjoyed having him here with us for as long as he was here. He was a regular at one point, and it's always good to see friendly faces back.
Yes.
So let's see. Shannon, would you like to participate in wrap up?
Yes, ma'am. My win for the week is noticing something we talked about last week. Becky, you had said that we were talking about how our emotions are faster communicators, like they can spread faster than the speed of light, and just noticing how the emotions are around you and setting parameters on what we're willing to engage so the fire doesn't spread. And so I was really trying to notice, because stuff can affect me more than I realized. And so when I turned on my awareness to it, I was just like, all right, let's just be aware of what's around me. And being able to kind of plant my own flag in the ground a little bit more deeply and let what's going on around me happen. And, that connected into what you talked about today too, which is, what is your responsibility? And there are, clarifying some of those boundaries and edges has really helped keep my mind the other thing centered. But the other thing that's been really fun to think about is in the very beginning of my understanding of a why state, I associated, like years and years ago, I associated a why state with using the word why. And it does have that effect on me. Like if someone uses that word, I can feel my whole body react. But just removing that word from my vocabulary, which I have probably to like 90%, 80, 90% of the time, it's not a word I choose to use anymore. But it's fun to try and go back and now deepen my understanding of what a why state is, even though I'm decreasing the amount of time I use that word in my daily living. And it is a great flag. It's like, oops, I just said that. So then what am I feeling? And to kind of tune me into what my state is like, but to learn a deeper level of awareness of what an actual why state is, even if I'm not using the word. So that's what I'm like, I'm trying to notice like the feelings and the undercurrents and what's going on around me and how does that impact me. And sometimes things don't fly out my mouth, but it's what is also the dialogue going on in my head. So it's a fun thing to really dive into on a practical level, because we talk about a why state in almost every episode, but I really am enjoying the deeper dive into just the daily living and the practicality of navigating that. The visual aids, the different things that you brought up have been really helpful as well. And Tim, the way that you process through the little flow, the questions and using the question concepts, that was really effective for me. And I appreciated starting, like in my mind, having somewhere to start, which is what I was trying to fumble for in the beginning a little bit. Cause I was like, well, then what, curiosity, we can train ourselves to go straight to curiosity, but, are there other like, evaluative questions we can ask ourselves because understanding is one of the things that helps me unpack intense emotion. And I appreciated, Blair, you bringing that up too. Because if I can have names and labels for something, then some of the steam gets let out and it's like, oh, okay, that's what that was. Let's go. And so really, really great. We'll go with a 9 for me tonight. I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Yeah, a lot of really great, real life stuff. Thank you, everyone. So yes, a 9.
Thank you, Shannon. Becky, would you like to participate in wrap up? Share a win from the past week.
Yeah, my win is I tripped over a Y hole and I only got slightly wet. So
A little
context.
bit of splash, huh?
I got a little splash on my foot, but again, speed of recovery. My foot went in and it came fairly quickly right out again. So brief context around is it's been very rainy here. There's been a lot of running water. There's been a lot of flooding happening. And when that happens, it's that balance between relive and remember. The impetus of seeing the thing or hearing the thing, my body and my brain's like, ooh, like let's go there. And my brain's like, actually, where are you right now? What are you feeling right now? What do you know about what you're feeling right now? And what do you want to do with it? So the splash came from that knee jerk. You don't get to control life around you or situations that happen, but
Yep.
you do get to control what you do with it. So that's my win for this week.
And if I can just add really quick to that, the canyon that we lost our daughters in flooded this week.
Oh,
Yeah. And there were some people, thankfully they were trapped, but they were okay. They got out, but there were some people that ended up trapped in the canyon. That was this week. We are also headed to have a Havasupai, which flooded out last year. We're headed there in 2 days. So there's been some rain here. So just to give you a little bit of an idea of what
It could have been the dark side of the moon crater.
it could have been
and
a much
instead
bigger splash. So
the little Y hole stumbling over the pothole of Y hole. Anywho, but again, it just speaks to the power of being able to attune yourself to what you feel and the truth of what it is in the present state so that you can work with it instead of allowing it to work with you. I like to work with my stuff instead of having them work with me.
Or
And
work over you.
or work over me or hoodwink me or whatever. I don't like to be acted upon. I like to have that sense of what I might do in a situation. Um, so that was super powerful. And then Blair, there's been a lot that's been shared today, but I really appreciated your you're talking about relive, live, and
Remember.
relive and remember, because so many times I hear people who are living, not just reliving, but they've relived it and now it's become part of their identity, and
Yeah.
they carry as a mantle moving forward. And to understand just how much energetic release and lightness can come by having clarity of those pieces and your functional counting tool again. Am I okay? Am I safe right now? It's kind of, how do I know? Looking around your surroundings to be able to identify, is there an actual threat or is it just manufactured? Because again, so often we live in that state of fear because we haven't got specific enough with ourselves about our feelings and what's actually real right now. It's a very powerful reminder. So thank you. Again, vivid imagination can do a lot of harm because our brains can't, delineate between the two. But when we have the ability to name and label, describe feelings, and use these other mind models like the 3 E's, etc., then we can actually limit our exposure, get out of things, and be able to get forward motion. So thank you.
give our brains something else to work with.
Absolutely.
Mhm. Tim, would you like to participate in wrap up?
yes, I'd love to. Thank you, Patty. Yeah, for me, tonight is a 9.75. Really enjoyed tonight. Really enjoyed being able to help out with the facilitation tonight. My win for this week is I've had so far, it's Tuesday, and I've had 3 opportunities already that are very uncomfortable to lean in and to hone my skills and to be able to help facilitate and be a part of some big projects moving forward. 2 of them were just today, and so it's been a heavy day. Leaning into a little bit of the fear and the uncomfortable, and being able to dodge the why state behind it all, and being able to just be there, be present, be effective.
Mhm.
And I have another one tomorrow. And so being able to get uncomfortable and to grow has been awesome.
That's
And
a
I'm
huge
looking forward to more of it. So that's my win for this week so far. And tonight, so much great stuff. I'm gonna echo Becky in the remember, relive, and live. I had heard the mind model before as remember versus relive. I had not heard the live part of it until we started going through this Why Whole series. And so that and the way you explained it, Blair, and walking through that process makes so much sense. And so I have a new aha with a mind model that again, one of the mind models I was thinking I understood and had it now goes a level deeper, which I love to go just that much deeper into the mind model, the mind models, not to mention, each one, because I know that there is to all of these mind models, they can go quite a bit deeper. And so it's always exciting to go another level deeper. And then being able to be a part of working with Blair, being a part of, working with Colin, Patty, and all of us here, really. I mean, Jackie had a big part of it with the inoculation process, and really bringing that process together. And, just being able to be a big play in that all coming together really worked for me. And I appreciate, everybody's input and the opportunity to be a part of that. So.
Thank you, Tim. Just want everybody to realize, which we didn't make explicitly clear, but the inoculation process, that where, who, what, where, when, how process, was born out of Tim's process of managing his own why potentials. And we sat down as a group and put names and labels and question concepts to his process. And that's where it was refined. So this was actually birthed out of the process that Tim had almost an unconscious or subconscious competence with, and then pulling it out, putting names and labels to it so it could be identified, repeated, duplicated. And that's what we've got for you tonight. So we really appreciate, Tim, you being able to share that with us. And your facilitation tonight was excellent, going through all of that.
Yeah.
So well done.
Good job.
Blair, would you like to share, Mr. 7 years, 364 episodes?
It's been a minute. Yes.
Yes.
So anyway, multiple wins this week. I'm walking better, like a lot better, without my cane because of post hip surgery. So that's a huge win. I was walking so much better and having so much less pain that I was wondering maybe I should not do the other hip. But I had a chat with my morning group that I attend every morning. And one guy, Dave from Scotland, his wife is a doctor and has friends who've had the surgery, and reminded me of what my doctor said. So I'm going ahead. So that's excellent. I've had other wins as well this week, which is significant. Had a huge win on Friday. I met a person I'm marketing myself, well, in getting to know other people. I'm getting out there through LinkedIn. And one of the people, Jessica Noel, jumped on a call and we hit it off. And we had our coffee and she wanted to find out more. So we jumped on another call and I profiled her. And she's saying, well, wow, Blair, I used to, in upstate New York, there's a major institute there that brings speakers in all the time. And her job was to put groups together. And so I need a person like that or people like that can do that. That's definitely what I need. I struck up a conversation with her and we're looking at exploring how to make that happen in potentially January. So that's exciting. So that's another huge win for me. So that's huge. Tonight overall, relive versus remember was relive, live, remember. I'm glad I brought up the live part because that was stuff that I threw out of the mind model decades ago and haven't really discussed it, but it was originally in there. And then in bringing it back in, I like how much meaning it had on, there was a lot of meat. Tim and others shared their input and how much that actually resonated with them. And that's big. It's a big deal. So that's a huge win for me tonight, confirming all of that stuff and really liking how that's going. So that was, again, huge. So for me, yeah, a 9 out of 10 for me tonight. So solid, solid night. And it's great to be able to say, I've done this for 7 years. That's another huge win.
That is.
So I don't want to belittle that in any way, shape, or form. It's a huge win. It's a very big accomplishment.
It is.
Yeah.
Very
Oh,
big
the
accomplishment.
last big win that I had a wonderful set of meetings with a couple of meetings with my VA. And so we're going to start working towards actually um, working towards getting me into more speaking opportunities and live ones. And so I'm actually going to be heading down to Calgary, Alberta, and in November. I'm not speaking, but I'm going to Western Canada's. Um, it's regarding. Um, oh, sorry, the name is slipping my mind here. But basically, what it comes down to is their the name is First Responders Mental Health Conference. So it's in for Western Canada. So as you may or may not know, I'm up here in Canada, and yeah, so I'm going to that First Responders Conference. It's all about mental health issues and all the stuff that Phobia Freedom Formula can deal with and help. And maybe I can find some people that are looking to explore that, or people, or even if I can find an insurance company that I may be able to help, maybe um, both train up people and or get clients for, to speed up the change the speed of recovery, because people don't need to live in their phobia or fear. Like, I mean, I did for years until I learned parts of what I eventually combined and put together as the Phobia Freedom Formula. So that's basically it. So big week for me.
Very excited for your possibilities and for your wins.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Yeah.
For me, trying to think, win this past week. For me, the win was navigating some really intense emotional times and being able to stay grounded. And again, getting splashed by other people's why, but not my own. And so that was a win for me. I do want to say, Zach, wonderful to have you here. I'm so glad, whatever it took for you to be here, that you were able to do that. Glad to have you back. Shane, please pass on to Christy that we missed her, and that our thoughts and prayers are for your son-in-law, and we're continuing to support you through that difficult time. Tim and Becky.
And for your back too, your shoulder.
Yes, and for your shoulder too. Thank you, Blair. So Tim and Becky going to be gone for a week. We're going to miss you, but the Havasupai experience and getting through all that, we're looking forward to hearing back from you when you return, what that was like and how your tools supported you through that experience. The Why series continues. Next week, we're going to look at the impact of why on procrastination. And then we're going to go on the impact of why with anxiety and the impact of why on depression. So those are 3 upcoming episodes that we have not done yet. starting with the impact of why on procrastination next week.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So glad to have this experience with you guys. Becky, I'm going to turn it over to you if you could take us out.
All right. Thank you guys. Again, 90 minutes of enrichment, personal insight, and awareness. Mind models are fantastic as far as being able to become more effective with yourself and others. We discussed a lot tonight. Again, the Counter for the Dark Magic Part 2, episode 364. But as usual, we only covered a fraction of what we prepared. So if you want to get deeper insight, be able to see again, other things you might do, other additional processes that we prepped for but didn't get to, in addition to what we covered tonight, please make sure you get your hands on Blair's study guides. He's put together study guides, the BDE Insider Notes, where you get all historical and ongoing notes for the Blair Dunkley experience, starting with 318, and again, we're on 364. And the investment in that is $25 a month or $300 a year. Definitely worth it if you're looking to become more effective, increase your resiliency, speed of recovery, work through issues personally or professionally. Definitely recommend doing so. You can get those at blairdunkley.com/BDE-insider notes. And again, podcasts that Blair has coming out. He's got the Mind Model Minutes podcast, as well as a couple books. Ultimate Mind Hacking can be found on Amazon. I just about said Amazon, as well as the Phobia. It is amazing. The Phobia Freedom Formula book. Again, we touched on a little bit tonight about how future events appearing real can actually limit our success in life. The Phobia Freedom Formula book gives insight on how you can start to limit that. And again, Blair's got programs and resources. If that's something that you want to dig deeper into, please make sure that you shoot him an email. Again, he has got a lot of great stuff that is all geared towards effectiveness. So please make sure you join us here next week, again, every single Tuesday at 7 p.m. Mountain, 9 p.m. Eastern. If you're out there on YouTube, please make sure you comment, like, and subscribe so that you can listen live as we are going through these things, or so you can also catch the replay if you're not able to make it live. Appreciate you all. Thank you so much for the richness that you guys provide by sharing a little bit of you with us. Again, this is about the experience and not just static learning. This is what makes this BDE experience such a powerful thing. Looking forward to seeing you. Well, we won't see you next week, but you guys will all still be here Tuesday for the next series in why. Again, why and procrastination. If that's something that you struggle with, make sure you tune in. You'll get some insights on how you might be able to move through that a little bit more effectively. And we'll catch you next time. Have a good night, everyone. We'll see you.
Take care.